your work is incredibly powerful, right? You've lived the movement, you've breathed it from within. You're a choreographer turned activist. And I guess my first question to you is about where we're at now in terms of the recent ceasefire.
And people are exhausted. Throughout the last 3 years, there have been waves of people. As you saw, some protests had hundreds of thousands of people, and some were extremely small. People are not meant to deal with this kind of psychological terrorism from their own country. And I think the biggest shift was 2 months ago when the government decided to conquer Gaza. And I will tell you that within the protest movement there were many voices, sometimes clashing with each other, and that single decision that said, we're going to kill all the hostages, we're going to kill loads of soldiers, and not just in this war, but in the years to come it will be like southern Lebanon was. This united everyone together to go to the streets, and in one day we were 2.5 million people on the streets. And I think this is what shifted the American government to do this step for us. Because the talk is not anymore between right and left. This doesn't exist. Everyone is shifted right, including myself. The question now is life or death. Are we going to be a nation of death? Are we going to continue with these wars, which we've seen in Gaza since the day we've pulled out? I don't know how many of them there have been, we haven't counted, but the last one is insane. You will probably agree with me. We cannot afford one more like this.
When you talk about life or death, a question is, from your experience, how widespread is that empathy among the protesters? And why is it still such a, and maybe it's an obvious question, but why is it still such a difficult conversation amongst protesters?
Well, in the fight against political judicial overhaul, I'm sorry, this entire question was off the table, the occupation, because the threat of dictatorship was so huge. Then we needed as many forces as we could get. But I personally think this was a mistake. This is the source of all evil. There's 5.5 million of them. We cannot control another people. And it's very difficult when soldiers are dying inside Gaza by Hamas terrorists and hostages are under the ground. It's very difficult to have this empathy, and even for me, for a very long time, I'm sorry to say that I knew the empathy here, but I could not feel it here. And then at some point it became unbearable, and we started putting these messages into what we're yelling, that this war is not killing only the hostages and the soldiers, this is killing human beings. There's 65,000 of them. This is insane. That's 3% of the society. I don't know how much that would be in Australia, but in Israel that would be 300,000 people. And it's true that this war was a necessity at first. But you know, we had two paths. One was with Egypt, which was a threat as big as the Palestinians. We just forgot about it because it was a long time ago. But the amount of courage that the government, the right-wing government, had at the time with Sadat. We might not be best friends with the Egyptians, but we have a long-standing peace with them and with Jordan, and on October 7th we were not afraid that they would join the fight. And the other path is what we've chosen with the Palestinians. And someone has to have the courage to choose another path. Because when there's no peace, there is war. There's no such thing as status quo. I learned that the actual meaning of the word, the phrase status quo, means the time before the next war. So we need to understand that if we don't do an agreement, and I'm not saying this out of love towards the Palestinian people, I've seen them on the street celebrating October 7th. It's despicable. And I have nephews in the army. And I'm scared shitless. And there's so many people in Israel that are not sleeping because they're afraid. I said in the film 1 million, this is not an accurate number because that was recorded in August 2024. It's 3 million. 3 million Israelis are on the spectrum of post-trauma. Obviously, I'm within them. And imagine 8 million Australians. This is insane. We have to choose another path and group up with the people who are as sane as us, that want to raise kids, want to sit on the porch, and want to have hummus. We're so similar, the people. It's so easy to find the ones who do want this and to give them more and more power until the extremists, they won't disappear because they're wacko, but they will become irrelevant.
And like just as an example, in Northern Ireland, the unsung hero of the Good Friday Agreement wasn't any individual, wasn't any political leader, it certainly wasn't just Tony Blair. It was what was called the Northern Ireland Fund for Peace, where the EU invested more than $2 billion in civil society initiatives on people to people 12 years before the Good Friday Agreement was signed. Imagine what could be done if the civil society that you're so integrally part of and leading was invested in on both sides. So I think that gives us hope as well.
I hope that the Palestinians will rise to this challenge also, because we can see that our current government cannot. They don't have the capacity even if they wanted to. So we need to try and have, I'll say it bluntly, we need to try and have legal elections in 11 months. And they will try any trick in the book because there are no boundaries. I'm saying it out loud to you, we need you. We need every single one of you, because then we can have a normal government that maybe will reach out, and I think it only will take one side to rise to this, that the other side might also, and we've seen hundreds and thousands of people on the street fighting for people who they've never met, and this means that that humanity is the answer to everything. If we can do it for Gali Viziv and bring them home alive, then we can do it for the people in Gaza, we can do it for the people in the West Bank, we can stop dying.
What I find so impressive and inspiring about listening to Israelis, and to be fair, you're an activist, but not just activist, is this positive framing of the Intil Tzul, right? The idea that the whole movement was bring them home, right? Not let them go, right? Hamas had them. It was bring them back. Empowering yourselves as agents of your own destinies is extraordinary. My final question, and then I hope to have time to perhaps open up for maybe one or two very short questions, is just if you could give us a little bit of the day-to-day, the logistics, just zooming out for a moment from the very deep value conversation we're having, and just to answer this. You participated in this last period in a marathon of activism, week in, week out, and it wasn't just you, right? It's a movement of people. How do ordinary people manage to suspend their lives and sustain that level of engagement for so long? How is that logistically possible?
It's not. most people couldn't deal with it. So for all the people that you saw in the film, there are many, many people who could not deal with it, and they are not meant to. This is a quote from the father of Naaman Levi while she was still kidnapped. He said, "This is not normal." So anyone that I've met in the street has enormous capacity to get to his window, the edge of his window of tolerance, and then push further and further and further and further to do the right thing. And this can take you to the border of insanity. I can say that I've crossed mine many, many times, and the only thing that held me together was to know that there are other people who have done the same. We have supported each other on the street, collapsing. I have witnessed the most extraordinary moments, because we were a movement that was non-violent. The things that were left for us was what we would shout. I would spend weeks, months writing deep things so it would not become a happy, joyful shouting. And to scream them out with rhythm, to be around a fire like cavemen. And one particular situation was in the Chagim of last year, so a year ago now, and we were around one of the protests of Shabbat, and at the beginning I used to see like a 13-year-old shouting, and I would be like, "Oh my God, he's only a child, this is such a scoop." Or someone in a wheelchair, and I'm like, "I can't believe they need to fight for the hostages." And with time, all of this dissipated and started to become normal. If a 13-year-old can shout the truth, we will repeat after him, thousands of people. And if someone who has MS can barely walk and is there as equal as I am, and no one is has an sorry, I've got stuck. Poor. No one is poor, and everyone is extremely powerful. Suddenly, we were around this fire with Einat Sangaka, which you probably know, and it was a moment we were shouting, and suddenly Yagil, who's the cousin of Nimrod Cohen, the soldier who recently returned, he has a speech impairment, his cousin, and he wanted the megaphone to speak, and he could barely speak. He tries to say a sentence, and it doesn't come out. And the atmosphere is like this, with the fire, with the songs, with everything, and everything just froze. And no one told me, "Oh, go on." No, everyone just stood and waited for him to say what he wanted to say about his cousin. And there was something about this image that I suddenly understood that in this Holocaustal environment, reality, I was witnessing utopia. I was witnessing equality, all ages, young, old, poor, rich. No one cares where you live, what you work, how wealthy you are. If you know to speak the truth and you're an honest person, you belong here. And this shows the potential of what you said before, that took maybe 12 years in Ireland, and I hope it doesn't take this long here, but we've seen the power. Often you need to bring situations to here in order for something as pure to be born, and it has been born here. And I don't mean just in Israel, I mean also here. I am aware of what you've done, and what other communities in Australia and around the world have done. We're discovering that we're not powerless against these forces that try and make us small. We all have meaning, and we all could bring this train back to track if we all group together and decide that we're going to do it.